In this video, I want to talk about the Viceroyalty of New Granada. I'm using it to teach you something here. Around the 1770s, this territory over here, let's keep Venezuela separate now, had around 1.3 million people. That's the present-day Panama, Colombia, and what we today call Ecuador. The Kingdom of Quito, which we call Ecuador, had around 450,000 people. Yes, 450,000 people. Close towards 500,000 people. The rest lived in this area over here. And Venezuela had around 800,000 people living here. Now, Venezuela was separated from the new Kingdom of Granada because the distance between the towns of Venezuela and the capital, Santa Fe de Bogota, it was considered enormous, due to the delay in communication because they had to travel by road and the roads were not that well maintained. And let's say there were pirates over here that attacked the province of Guyana. It would take about a few days to go to the capital, Angostura, which was the capital of the Spanish province of Guyana. And from there, it would take maybe a week before Santa Fe de Bogota received a message. And then it would take maybe 2 weeks before the military would have responded. So the distance was enormous. That's why King Charles III separated Venezuela, the Venezuelan provinces, from New Granada, and he made a separate country or kingdom of this. Now, I want to use this as a parable. But first I want to highlight one more thing. If this territory indeed had such a low population, why didn't the British invade it? I mean, Britain could easily send several ships, like 1,000 men over here, 1,000 men over there, another 1,000 over here, all armed, and then a month later, another 3,000 over here, and they could have invaded all of Venezuela. Why didn't it happen? Because I told you this before. The pagan rulers of the world, they are at peace with one another. Their enemy is the human population. So those that ruled the Spanish, British, and French empires, they were one big family, one big cartel. It were the people in the populations that had issues with one another. You may have had Spanish people having issues with one another within the Spanish Empire, or you may have had British folks who became pirates at something against the Spanish Empire. But at the top, the rulers were of one accord. That's why, despite the low population of, for example, Venezuela, no foreign power invaded it. So the separation of Venezuela from New Granada, even that was a distraction to let the people here think they were under a threat while there was no actual threat coming. Now, there were incidents, there were pirates that came, there was smuggling going on, so I don't think there was no danger at all, but no actual invasion from any colonial power happened because the rulers of those colonial powers were all of one accord. But okay, that's what I want to say about that. What you can learn from this, and that is the main reason why they separated Venezuela from New Granada, is that you need to be practical. Here, the people that lived over here, most of them were farmers. There weren't many so-called Europeans or whites around here. Mostly blacks and natives. Their economy was more focused on the Caribbean and the rest of the Guyana region, while you had many plantations owned by the Dutch, the French, and the British. Those who lived at these shores were more into trade with the Caribbean islands above here. You don't see that on the map. Those in this bay were more inclined to trade with Central America over here. So you had the Portuguese economy over here that was of a huge influence on the province of Guyana. You had the other economies of the British, Danish, Swedish, French economies in the Caribbean that were of influence on this province over here. You had this province that was more inclined to the Spanish economy over here. And then you had the Kingdom of Quito, which was more connected to Peru, the economy of Peru, which was also Spanish territory, and the trade with Asia, because you had fleets coming from Asia that would go both to Guatemala and to the south over here, and from there they would continue on to Spain. And you had this territory over here, which was kind of in the center of it all. So this, which functioned as a sub-country, was way too big. Not only was the population low, but also in administration, you would have to consider many things. And that would be a burden, a huge burden on the capital over here. So that's why they separated Venezuela to make it more feasible. And now, when Simón Bolívar wanted to establish his nation called Colombia, he united the new Kingdom of Granada, the Kingdom of Quito, and the Kingdom of Venezuela. He united all of the three back together on one administration as the Republic of Colombia. But didn't the Spanish separate the Venezuelan territories from New Granada because it wasn't practical to keep this all together? And remember, this was still under the Spanish Empire. You had the Spanish Navy that patrolled everywhere. You had one currency. There were borders, but no national borders. But still it didn't work well. And now Simón Bolívar comes, unites it all together as Colombia, and it fell apart after around 5 years. Why? It wasn't doable to begin with. First of all, now that they were a separate nation, they didn't have the Spanish Navy anymore, so now they had to have their own navy. Now they had to have their own military, their own currency. Now, did they have their own navy? No. Did they have their own military? Well, they had militias that worked together. Did they have their own currency? Well, I had to come up with a currency, but your currency, how are you going to regulate the currency? Diplomatic relations. Did they have experience with it? No. Most countries didn't even want to acknowledge the Republic of Colombia. And to have trade relations, you need to be acknowledged as a country. There were smugglers from the United States that traded with the Republic of Colombia, but it was not official. Most of them were pirates or just criminals. You still had the smuggling that went on in Venezuela towards Europe. What are you going to do with that? If you want to have a navy, you need to have a stable economy. The Republic of Colombia did not have a stable economy, because their currency wasn't worth much, because before the Republic of Colombia was established, all this were Spanish territory and all used the real. Afterwards, you had to come up with your own currency, and your currency is only valuable if it's acknowledged, and if your currency is both in usage and desired by others. So they had no stable economy, so they couldn't finance their own navy. And if you have a navy, you both need ships over here, ships over there, and you need to build military camps around the borders. Without a stable economy, none of this would work. That's why Bolívar's Republic of Colombia did not work. If you look at the situation carefully, anyone would have looked at the situation would have realized it's not going to work. The Spanish were experienced in managing large territories. They separated Venezuela from New Granada because they realized it's not going to work. And then this Bolívar comes up and wants to unite them all together, forming a republic without a navy, without an effective fiscal policy, and especially without a stable economy. Yet the people fell for it. That's how you can see that Simón Bolívar was nothing but an agent of the pagan rulers. He brought all these peoples over here. Around 1820, the population had increased a bit, but he brought all these people in anxiety because there was rejoicement because they so-called separate from Spain, even though many didn't want to separate from Spain, especially in the Kingdom of Quito. Many just wanted to remain with Spain. Even Venezuela, there were many just wanted to remain Spaniards. First was celebration, but afterwards the trouble began and the Republic of Colombia fell apart. So now you had three countries without stable economies having to move forward, and you have no experience in politics, nor in economics, nor in military matters. Who in the right mind would have supported this? Well, those in Europe and the rest of the world did not want to acknowledge Colombia because they realized this is going to collapse. And it did collapse. That's why I'm telling you, when there's opposition in the world, evaluate the opposition. Simón Bolívar, when you look at how history unfolded, he was nothing but controlled opposition. Because look at it this way, when Spanish America collapsed, who benefited from it the most? The local elites, the local Spanish Roman Catholic elites. The trade with Spain continued, but now Spain didn't have to spend all that money on the navy and on the local courts to manage the people. So who benefited from it? The Polonist elites that were spread around Spanish America. Because if they would have remained with Spain, the resentment amongst the population would have led to them having to redistribute the wealth. There was a lot of wealth in Spanish America, absolutely, but still, remember it's the world, the wealth was not distributed the right way. So by them now separating from Spain and making Spain the boogeyman, and they were now away from Spain, now there was no one to intervene, no one to regulate things, no one to supervise them. There were no Spanish courts that kept peace between the tribes. So now when violence emerged, well, there was just violence. And because the violence was not contained, the people were in a state of fear, state of anxiety all the time, and in a state of anxiety people couldn't think straight. So the population increased, the following generations grew up in anxiety, and Spanish America remained stagnant. So that's how you see how the pagan rulers think ahead. Today they call it Latin America instead of Spanish America, but the same structure is going on there. The Apollinist elites, the Apollinist households, while the local elites, they keep the populations over here in the negative. And that's how they benefit from it. It's the same thing that was established around 1820, 1830, the same is going on today. Only today we call it Latin America and the old republics. Besides that, and the higher population, the same thing is happening. So, again, be practical and always look at the bigger picture. Be at peace.